Hi, Emmanuel. Have we talked before?
No, unfortunately not yet. This is the first time.
This is the first time. It won't be the last. Funniest person on set was me, and then after that was Chris. I think Chris really for me is, there are people who are surprisingly funny. Russell Crowe is a very, very funny guy, and I think it was really great seeing that character, seeing Zeus in such a way, where Russell was able to just poke fun at himself and look a little silly, and his character, he had a lot of fun with doing that. He's very cheeky. Tess is also very funny. I mean, everyone's got funny in a different way, but Chris, I think Hemsworth is consistently just funny all the time. I think always in my top 3 favorite American rock bands is Pixies, who I just think is one of the greatest. But then, when you start with them, then there's a bunch of other bands that kind of go off into one direction, which takes into not one direction, but Nirvana, and you kind of go off that way. But GNR, like Appetite for Destruction, was one of the first albums I brought. I was in love with that band ever since, and I've always loved them. And always will. And Axl Rose is actually playing. They're playing tomorrow night here in London. I don't know if he's been invited, but I'd love for him to come and see this movie. Top Gun Maverick. Well, that's the last movie I saw, and I really enjoyed it. Apart from that, TV show Severance, I think is the best thing I've seen on TV for a long time. I'm just trying to think. I mean, I start things and never finish them, so that's the other problem. With Marvel, you're free to do whatever you want. You're free to venture off and try new things, and then eventually Kevin will say, well, I think we should maybe go back in this direction, or there's certain levels of being authentic and true to the stories in the comics, but they're really just a starting point. And even you can see with the design, of Gore, some fans are like, well, it doesn't look like him. That's not important. Also, in the comics, he's wearing a black bikini. So it's like, do you really want that? It seems distracting to me in a movie. So we wanted to make him feel like, a priest who had fallen from grace. Someone who was like, he was devout and he was a religious man, and now he's turned into this, basically a monster. To certain degrees, we have to pay respect to what went before us, but we have to also be able to evolve. The biggest problem with any of these types of film is figuring out a villain, what the villain wants, what drove them to become a villain, if they were evil from birth. I don't think anyone is ever evil from birth, and just to find reasons to understand why a villain is doing something, I think with this character, because many of us are parents, many of us have families, or many of us just as human beings can understand where the anger would come from. We don't have to agree with why he's doing it or what he's doing, but we can understand and empathize, with what drives him. So that's what attracted me to that character. I like the idea that it creates debate, and people are like, yeah, well, what would you do? If you had the chance and you realize the gods don't care. It's cool, and even with Natalie's character, what would you do if you had one day left, as a god, or if you had the chance of another year as a human? The dilemma that presents itself. They're very human questions. Yeah, maybe. I mean, when it comes to Star Wars, I'm still not sure what it will be. I'm trying to figure out something that feels original, but still has to feel like it's within that world. Actually, that temple was the palace was also inspired by the one in Never Ending Story. The final big glass light place in the Never Ending Story.